Welcome ladies and gentlemen, Tactical Lich here, and today we have a super close hybrid battle played between me and Coops, with me leading Kislev forces and Coops rolling with the Grand Cathay. So for army builds, we have a front line of Kossars mixed in with Zargots with great weapons. At the back we have a bunch of Kossars with spears and Streltsies for those armor-piercing missiles, hoping to shoot up any large monsters or flying cavalry. At the back we have the winged lancers and some warbear riders protecting the backline or providing some mobility to push up, and in the front line we have some horse archers providing that skirmishing firepower to harass and whittle down enemy units. And for the leadership of the army we have Tsarina Catherine coming in with a bunch of spells, mostly for the damaging abilities, Ice Maiden's Kiss and Heart of Winter. Also with Frostfang, her AoE item with great armor piercing value, Tsarina Catherine today is basically a human artillery piece. Now, for the Grand Cathay frontline led by Coops, we have a bunch of Jade Warriors, no chevrons, just generic Jade Warriors, and at the back, a single unit of Celestial Dragon crossbows, flanked and protected by a bunch of Peasant Spears. And at the back, more Peasant Spears and a whole lot of Jade Lancers providing that armored mobility to counteract any Kislev cavalry, and more Peasant Horsemen at the back. And that's basically it for the infantry and melee department. Also, we have a unit of Fire Rain Rocket providing some ridiculous firepower to smash up my infantry formations. As for the leadership, we have a single unit of Dragon-Blooded Shugengan Lord with the Yin lore, coming in with Blossom Wind, a rather weird wind spell that doesn't do that much damage, but instead have a massive blinding effect that debuffs enemy units. And of course we have the Destructive Talents of the Night, the best spell in the lore of Yin. In addition, there is the skills of the Celestial Court for the Dragon-Blooded Shugengan Lord, providing additional tankiness with the physical resistance. And that's basically it for army builds. Let's not waste any more time and go straight into the action. For those who don't know, the hybrid battle mode is basically a mixture of land battles played on domination map. We have the objectives on the map for capturing, as well as a full starting army of 12,400 gold, allowing the Cathay player here to get a full combined arms army build with a bunch of defensive infantry and cavalry protecting the artillery piece, the most crucial element of the Cathay army here, raining fire and destruction into the ranks of my Streltsies, Zargots and Kossars, doing massive damage. And I have no way to get into the backlines fast enough, as my lack of flying units as the Kislev army will be counteracted by the Jade Lances, and my cavalry will be blocked off, unable to threaten the backlines just yet before thinning them out. So I'll be harassing them with a couple volleys of arrow fire from the horse archers to chip away their health. But they can't get too close as the dragon crossbows are ready to counter fire, pushing them back and buying more time for the Fire Rain rockets to continuously bombard my infantry, wreaking havoc amongst my lines. My Kossars are already wavering, activating that Blood passive, while the horse archers are now taking some counterfire damage from the Celestial Dragon crossbows, as my Streltsies and Kossars with spears are raining down the missiles, the bullets and arrows into the unit, hoping to force them off the battlefield before they can do too much damage to my more expensive units like the winged lancers and warbear riders. Speaking of cavalry, we have the winged lancers and warbear riders in position on objective 2, hoping to push through my opponent's cavalry on this flank, as my superior mobility can then push into the backlines. My cavalry will most certainly win this engagement with their sheer quality, especially with my opponent missing the charge on one of the Jade Lancer units. But that will take some time, as there are more Peasant Long Spears saturating onto this flank, hoping to buy time for the Fire Rain rockets to continuously bombard my backlines. And with the numbers advantage in terms of infantry, the Jade Warriors are pushing into my backlines, tying down some Kossars in melee, so I will be forced to use some Streltsies turning their fire onto the backs of these Jade Warriors, as well as some of the Kossars with spears too, raining down the arrows into the Jade Warriors. Dumping down Tsarina Catherine into a melee fight as well, hopefully to break them off fast enough to free up the Kossars once again. But with the Jade Warriors pushing in, the Streltsies are forced to pull back, avoid this melee engagement, using those winged lances rear charge to tie them down in combat instead. Now back to the left flank, the Kislev cavalry have successfully broken through the Jade Lances, and they will further give chase just to make sure these Cathay heavy cavalry are not coming back. At the Cathay backline, some horse archers sneak through the gaps, sacrifice themselves, putting themselves on the line to silence the fire rain rocket, but despite their sacrifice, the swarm of Jade Lances and peasant horsemen and peasant long spears will be tying them down, wiping them off the map, securing the fire rain rocket once again. Still, with this little interruption, the Zargods were able to have a more successful push in the middle, cutting their way through a bunch of Cathay infantry thanks to the sacrifice of the horse archers, but with the Shogun Lord tying down the Zargods and dropping a massive Talons of the Night here. They have been taking significant damage from the area of effect spells, and now some regrouped Celestial Dragon crossbows will be shooting their armor-piercing missiles into the Zargods, as their lack of shields will make them more susceptible to these armor-piercing damage. At the same time, these Jade Lances and Peasant Spears will be pushing in, pinning down the Zargods, trying to buy time for the Dragon crossbows to expand a little bit more of their ammo. At the rear of Kislev, the Cossacks with spears were untouched, continuously pouring in arrows into enemy units. Into this blob where lances clashes against lances, winged lances pinning down Jade Lancers to buy time for the Cossacks to shoot. While on the left flank, after chasing off the Jade Lances, the Warbear Riders are finally free to continue their push into the backlines, though the Winged Lancers are still occupied by some returned Jade Lancers. So the Warbear Riders will be charging in alone against the intercepting peasant horses. In terms of victory points, my opponent now has the advantage here, with some long spears capturing objective 3 and more long spears capturing objective 2. All I have is the single objective in the middle, and even then it is not a secured area, with my opponent slowly wrestling it away from my grasp, as the peasant long spears have pushed in using their numbers advantage to slowly capture the objective. And there will also be a Blossom win here, hoping to whittle down my Cossack units, allowing the peasant long spears to fight more cost efficiently with the debuffed melee stats on the Cossacks. And since I'm gonna lose this combat anyways, I dumped a Frost Fang into this blob, making sure my battered Cossack unit doesn't go down alone, bringing the peasant long spearmen with them. Though the bad news is the fire rain rocket that I failed to shut down has survived till now, using up all its ammo, giving them 228 kills, over 2,300 value. That is some serious heavy lifting for the Cathay artillery crew. Coops did a great job screening out my mobility, and as a result my infantry paid the ultimate price. Still, my troops will keep pushing for the back line, but my opponent retaliating. A nasty Talons of the Night almost catching my Zargods. And then there's a rear charge from the Jade Lances as well, flinging them back into the area of the Talons of the Night. However, this will be buying time for my Warbear Riders to circle around, hit up all these Celestial Dragon crossbows, whose armor-piercing bolts, if left alive, would be a great threat to the heavily armored Warbear Riders. With an overview of the battlefield, both armies are extremely tattered right now. Both of our infantry are extremely depleted, the Jade Warriors are almost destroyed, only one single healthy unit of Peasant Long Spears still remain, the other one is already down to half health, while my infantry, the Kislev, Cossacks, and Zargods are mostly gone from the battlefield as well, leaving only a couple of Spear Cossacks, and they will be routing some of the Jade Lances right now. While in the middle, we have successfully routed off some Jade Warriors as well, with their rear charge of some battered Winged Lances and the flanking of Cossacks with Spears. Some Streltsies returned so that they can continually firing their armor-piercing missiles into sniping the single entities and whatnot. And on the bright side, we have successfully routed all the Celestial Dragon crossbows, and no more armor-piercing fire that can threaten my Warbear Riders, who are running away from the Shogun Lord that is extremely healthy and is threatening to challenge Tsarina Catherine to mortal combat. Catherine, no matter how elegant and swift she is gliding on ice, she cannot outrun or duel a mighty dragon-blooded Lord of Cathay. So I'll be throwing the Warbear Riders back into the engagement yet again, hoping to tie down and focus down the dragon-blooded Shogun Lord. But then there's another spell dropping in, a Talons of the Night, I assume, yep, doing massive damage to the Warbear Riders in the area, who have already suffered heavy casualties throughout the battle and are now on the verge of obliteration. And suddenly the whole engagement turned around. Another Blossom Wind drops in, using those blinded effect to debuff the melee stats of these Warbear Riders down to 24 attack. They can't even punch through the 40 melee defense of the dragon-blooded Shogun Lord, even with the anti-large bonus. And with that, the Shogun Gunlord will be backing off from the engagement, allowing more units from the back to pour in, the Jade Lances and the Astromancer, pushing in, and will be surrounding these Warbear Riders who are on the verge of breaking, only barely holding because of the Viral Blood effect, and they will be focused down by the numerically superior Cathay Heavy Cavalry and Cathay Heroes. While Tsarina Catherine, realizing that she is in a rather disadvantaged engagement right now, will be dropping a Heart of Winter, hoping to drag down these Astromancer and the Shogun Gunlord with the direct damage, using the Streltsies to whittle them down as well, but she won't be able to escape from the grasp of the Mounted Lord. And to make things worse, the retreating order stops right here, putting Catherine's footsteps to a halt, allowing the pursuing Shogun Gunlord, who was hot on Tsarina's tail, to catch up with her, forcing me to push in some of the Kossar Spears to melee combat instead of using out all their ammo, just to provide extra melee support troops to help out Catherine in this disadvantaged melee fight. And on the flanks right now, one of my healthy unit of Kossar Spears were able to rout off these remaining Peasant Long Spears and now starting to capture Objective 3, and on the other flank, my opponent here with one single Peasant Long Spears are still tightly grasping this second objective here. Coops doing a really good job in objective game, getting a lot more victory tickets than me, 3,200 tickets compared to my less than 1,500. He is most certainly in a massive lead right now, and I need to contest those objectives soon. Thankfully soon the objective 3 will be under my control, providing me with an additional source of victory tickets. And all that remains for Cathay to contest this objective are some Fire Rain Rocket Crew who got some chevrons from killing off a lot of my units, up to 11 melee attacks, 7 melee defense. Right now they can most certainly hold slightly longer in melee. And with the recharging of the Peasant Long Spears into the backs of these Kossars with Spears, they will pose a little bit of a threat to my unit. Now back to the middle, another Talons of the Night is dropped, this time on my second unit of Kossars with Spears, basically wiping off the unit from the map and isolating Tsarina Catherine into a very disadvantageous duel, literally a 1v2 situation against two characters of the Cathay roster. However, I managed to rout off the Dragon-Blooded Shogun Gunlord, and now it is a duel between Tsarina and the Astromancer. Still, this is not exactly an easy fight for her, as the Astromancer is still very healthy, despite getting hit by multiple Hearts of Winter spell. Still have around 1,700 HP left compared to the around 1,100 of Tsarina. After all, Heart of Winter is a spell designed to kill off units with high model counts instead of single entities. Now let's look at Objective 3. Peasant Long Spears are still holding, I cannot contest them right now, so I'll be pushing in some of my remaining unarmored Kossars, using their missiles late game to whittle down the Peasant Long Spears before engaging the inevitable melee. While over here on this flank, the Kossar Spears who ran out of ammo are now in a very tough situation with a bunch of Peasant Long Spears surrounding them. Same goes for the Fire Rain Rocket Crew. Still, they managed to hold and break off these units. On top of that, some Dargods regrouped, joining the fight as well, reinforcing the engagement and cut down the bunch of Peasant Long Spears, once again breaking off all my opponent's forces in the area and securing Objective 3. But bad news is the middle fight is totally against my favor right now, as Tsarina seems to be losing this fight. Tsarina is definitely a better waterbender with all those icy moves, but the airbending Astromancer simply has too much HP. Down to 23 HP, one hit and she'll be gone. With over 800 HP left on the Astromancer, Tsarina simply cannot win this fight and she is slain. She put up one hell of a fight, but that simply wasn't enough. With the fall of the Ice Queen, my troops took a massive hit in leadership, forcing the Kossars with Spears to activate their Viral Blood effect, barely holding in combat. Same goes for the Kossars, who are barely holding, on the verge of breaking. These Winged Lances were holding because of the Viral Blood effect, stabilizing their leadership. And with the Missile Barrage, I was able to whittle down these Peasant Long Spears down to around 40% of their health. And all I need is a rear charge from the Winged Lances and a frontal charge from the Kossars to break their leadership. Though the problem is in the middle with Tsarina gone, I have no more troops to hold the middle objective. I need to bring back some of the Kossars with Spears to recontest this Objective 1, and they are being pulled away from their original objective, the Objective 3. And that means the Fire Rain Rocket Crew were able to regroup and sneak back onto the objective, using their numbers advantage to start capturing the objective again. My opponent Coops actually has a really close ticket count to victory, With only 700 tickets needed, while I still have 1,500 tickets left to go, all he needed was a single victory point and he will win. So if the artillery crew managed to capture this objective, that is game over for me and victory for Koops. On the other hand, I still have to capture Objective 2, which is on smooth progress with my combination of Kossars and Winged Lances barely managing to rout off the Peasant Spears. But suddenly, the Fire-Rain rocket crew routed from Objective 3 due to combat losses and exhaustion, denying my opponent from the objective. Now, since I have Objective 1, it all comes down to whether I can capture Objective 2 in time, but it is still an uncertain affair. They are stretched thin right now with Winged Lances capturing Objective 2, and the first objective, we have the Astromancer going for a desperate suicidal charge trying to break my Kossars with spears. But with the numbers advantage of the Kossars with spear and the really exhausted and battered Astromancer, the hero of Cathay can no longer hold despite slaying the Tsarina Catherine. And with that, I am able to slowly secure Objective 2, 1, and 3. But the real question is whether I can get Objective 2 in time before the timer runs out. The unfortunate rout of the Fire-Rain rocket crew did help me to hold on to Objective 3. My opponent Koops is still getting victory tickets because I have yet to capture Objective 2. My units have controlled the area, but they are capturing it ever so slowly, as their capture power has been significantly reduced by combat losses. I remember myself eagerly waiting for the capture to complete, and bam! I have secured this objective as well, getting the free cap. And now let's fast forward towards the end of battle as I managed to barely secure victory, with everything falling onto a few tattered units on my side, and a single depleted Fire-Rain rocket crew on Koops' end. GG to my opponent Koops for bringing such an amazing fight to the table. With everything down to the wire on a couple extremely battered units, the Fire-Rain rocket crew on the Cathay side, and some battered depleted Kossars on the Kislev side. If the Fire-Rain rocket crew stayed a little longer, maybe just 10 more seconds, they would have had enough capture weight to secure Objective 3, and that would have been GG for me as I do not have any means to retake that objective and push off the Fire-Rain rocket crew. So basically, a bit of an RNG and luck, but I managed to pull out ahead. In this game, me and Koops both had some issues with the army deployment and army builds, with Koops bringing the Blossom Wind not doing a whole lot in combat. Instead, if they brought a Ancestral Warrior Summon, then Cathay might have won this game with more manpower fending off my mobility and also trapping down my Warbear Riders. While on the Kislev side, the Streltsies didn't really serve much purpose in this combat other than getting showered by rockets from the artillery of Cathay and just got smashed apart. But instead, the damage value were much better on my Kossar unit, one of them getting over 1,200 value a chevron, and the others doing decent as well. As for the skirmishing cavalry, not doing a whole lot, one of them charged into the Fire-Rain rocket crew and silenced them, buying time for my Zargoths to push, blinding away at the Jade Warriors, but still not getting a whole lot value with all the cheap chaff of the Kislev army. And in the end, it was the Warbear Riders carrying the game with 2,121 value, as usual a really solid anti-large cavalry unit. While the Winged Lancers did alright, they almost earned back their own value, pushing off a bunch of cavalry and blocking off some Jade Lances and Jade Warriors with their charges. While Tsarina Catherine unfortunately got slain in combat, the damage spells weren't doing too much as there were not a lot of good targets for her to focus down. There were no concentrated big army blobs that the Heart of Winter can be used on, and she got focused down in the character combat. While my opponent here, the Dragon-Blooded Shugengan Lord, getting amazing value with the powerful combat strength of the character, as well as a bunch of Talons of the Night devastating my Zargoths, as well as some of my infantry like the Streltsies and Kossars, while the Jade Lances not exactly a solid cavalry unit, mostly there to body block my Horse Archers and some of my Winged Lances to buy time for the artillery and missile units to shoot up my valuable targets. However, the Celestial Dragon crossbow simply get shot up by the mass missile, the mass arrow volleys from the Kossar units, though the Fire-Rain rocket did get some amazing value, over 2,400 gold worth of damage value, 2 chevrons, definitely hard carrying the Cathay army this time. As for the rest of the Cathay infantry, they didn't really do too much here as their quality are rather mediocre. As for the Astromancer, he did finish off Zarina, but that's about it. I don't remember seeing him casting a lot of spells. He was mostly there, I assume, for that Elemental Wind effect, buffing the spell effectiveness of the Shugengan Lord. And that's basically it for today's battle. I hope you enjoy it. I found this format, the hybrid battle, really fun to play with a lot more options for tactics and strategies. You can go for the objective competition, trying to win the battle despite knowing that you can't destroy your opponent's army, or on the other hand, you can just simply crush your opponent's army and then declare victory by capturing all the objectives. And with the capture points existence and the full army deployment, there are less abuse of kiting tactics or the reinforcement mechanic. And I do recommend viewers, if you're interested, give it a go. It combines the strengths of both the land battles and domination game mode, and it's a great improvement to the multiplayer meta. And yeah, that's basically it for today's battle. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, remember to hit the like and subscribe to get notified, stay up to date on more videos about Total War Warhammer multiplayer. And if you want to showcase any battles, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.